Hi, everybody, and welcome to our week number 4 Twitch live stream for my research methods class. We have a big week this week in the sense that we have our first exam, but I see a bunch of you joining me, getting logged in, putting your names in the chat. Hopefully, you can all hear and see me okay. Can someone let me know in the chat if everything is coming through all right with like a yes or a thumbs up or something like that? That'd be super helpful. I'll wait just a second just to make sure, especially when it's windy like this. I'm always afraid the internet connection is sometimes a little sketchy when it gets windy, right? But if any of you could let me know, just like yes or thumbs up, that you can hear and see me fine, that'd be amazing. Otherwise, I will assume it's fine and I'll just keep going. But we are, as I said, in week number 4 this week. We're right here. So I want to give you just a tiny bit of feedback about last week, and then we'll focus on what we have going on this week. Great. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you so much. So if we go back to last week, we had kind of a big week last week too, in the sense that we had our first homework assignment. But I saw a lot of really wonderful things last week, both in the discussion and the homework. So really nicely done. I'm hoping you're feeling like you're settling into the class and things are kind of following a nice like rhythm for you at this point. Kind of have a good idea of what to expect from me and what to expect with what is due and all of that kind of stuff. The discussion and the homework last week were largely fantastic. The biggest thing I saw in the homework, biggest reason why people lost points, some of you forgot to give me a link to the article. And without the article, it was hard to know if everything matched up perfectly, so you lost a couple of points for that. But otherwise, really great job. Some really interesting articles that you all found. Great job in identifying the different components of them. I enjoyed your discussion results as well. Like really great job of like looking at different sources of information. Don't forget to reply to a classmate. A couple of you are still forgetting to do that. And don't forget as well that if you are finding that you lose like a point or two each week for not giving me enough, just elaborate a little bit more in your responses, and hopefully that will get you closer to full points. But again, at this point, it seems like a lot of you are doing great. From the survey checking in that a lot of you said, many of you seem to be feeling great about the class and where you're at. So that makes me really happy to hear. This week we move into week number 4, and we have 3 different times this semester that we will look at APA formatting. And this week is the first one of those 3 times. So for this week, if you look at the assigned readings, if you click on that, you have a couple of articles that I uploaded, and I tried to give you a couple of formats just in case for some reason the link gets broken. I also gave you a downloaded link, but you're going to read about what is plagiarism and how to avoid it. And then from the publication manual, a little introduction. So you have 2 different readings to do this week related to APA formatting. So make sure that you read through those and take notes and pay attention and all that kind of good stuff. You of course have you have a lecture and a lecture video like always. So if we take a look at the lecture together, as always, the first page is kind of what we're going over, the summary and key like learning objectives. On the Beyond the Book page, I have a little bit more about the APA style, when and why it's used, a little video introducing it, and then down here a little bit more about how to use sources, how to avoid plagiarism, when to cite sources, when don't you cite, and so on. And then on the last page is your key terms and review, all of the terms that you need to know for the first exam. So as always, make sure you watch any videos that are in there, click on the links, explore everything. All of it together is meant to help you with understanding the materials. And then I have a lecture video for you where I lectured to some PowerPoint slides on APA style formatting part 1. All right, so hopefully between all of those things, you have a really great, clear understanding of the materials for this week. And then you can jump into the 4th discussion, and then we'll talk about the exam in a minute as well. So with discussion 4, if you click on that, as always, you have my instructions, followed by my video, followed by the prompt. So as usual, make sure that you are really detailed in your responses, show off your knowledge and understanding. As I mentioned a moment ago, if you find that you're missing a couple of points each week, just try and give me a little bit more. And don't forget that classmate response to get those 2 points for that as well. And as always, there's that little rubric and sample right here should you need it. I hope you're watching the little videos. I just recently went back and remade all of them so that they would be much more current. Some of them had been getting a little bit old, but I go over the prompt in a little more detail to try and help you out. So this week, you're answering a couple of different questions. So you're looking at APA formatting. Number one, what is APA style? And explain when and why it's used. Number two, you're going to reference the reading right here and define two different forms of plagiarism and give me an example of each. And then number three, you're going to read through these three little scenarios. And for each one, you're going to decide, is it plagiarism or not? And then you'll explain why or why not. So three different questions and then these three scenarios for the last question. And make sure you support your opinion with stuff from the readings and the lecture for this week, right? Why is it plagiarism? Why or why not? And explain and describe. When you're ready, you'll hit reply. And you can see a few people have already done this. And then don't forget to reply to a classmate. So let's say I really love what Scarlett had to say. I could hit reply to her. But as always, don't forget to do the peer response plus the response to my questions. And I look forward to reading what you come up with. The other big thing that we have this week, we have our first exam. And I know exams cause people a lot of anxiety, so I want to take a little bit of time to kind of talk about that with all of you. Some hints and tips for how to prepare and all that kind of stuff. So I would like to first start by saying that my hope with exams is that all of you do fantastically. I really, really want you all to do well. I will never trick you on an exam. I will never give you a trick question. Everything should be very clear and straightforward. If you've been reading and studying and preparing, you should be in really, really good shape. So I've also given you a study guide, which we'll talk a little bit about, but the exams will never be tricky. They are set up for you to succeed. As long as you've studied and prepared and been doing everything we've been covering, you should be in really good shape. So the exam is linked right here. If you click on it, it will bring up the instructions. I want you to notice that it's worth 65 points and that you have 60 minutes to complete it. And so it's a little less than a minute per question, but what I have seen in the past is that this is more than enough time. Most people finish the exam in about 40 to 44 minutes and do pretty well on it. You have 60 minutes to complete it. You get one attempt. So make sure that you're ready and you're organized and you're all set before you hit begin. Now, a couple of things with that. When I say ready and organized, make sure that you have 60 minutes to spare, that you have good internet, that you have a quiet place to take the exam. All of those things will really set you up for success. Make sure that you've studied, you've done all the reading, you've gone through the study guide, which we'll look at in a minute together, and you know all of the terms that are going to be on there. If it were me, what I would do, especially for the first exam when you don't know what to expect yet, I would go through the study guide and I would write or type out all of those terms and have it in front of me. And the big advantage of that is you can use your notes and your book on the exam, like all of the materials on the exam. But if you come up to a question that you don't know the answer to, what you don't want to have to do is flip back through the lecture, flip back through that open source book, and use up your valuable time trying to find the answer. So if you were to write or type out the entire study guide and have that in front of you, it's going to be an easy point of reference. And it'll also be a great thing for you to be studying from and hopefully feel really prepared with. So you can use your notes, you can use the study guide, you can use all those resources during the exam, but I would really strongly recommend that you do study and prepare and take notes and do all that stuff as if it were like a regular in-person test. Canvas will stop your test at the scheduled deadline. Okay, so it will stop it if you pass the 11:59 deadline for the week or if you go over the 60 minutes that you have. So just be really mindful of the clock. If you don't know the answer to one of the questions, skip it. If you're not sure, skip it, come back to it. And then when you're done, you'll hit submit and you'll get a score right away for everything but the short answer. There are a couple of short answer questions on each exam, and I do have to grade those manually, which I do throughout the week. But other than those couple of short answer questions, you will know your score right away. So that's nice. You don't have to wait too long for that. And I will be grading the short answers throughout the week. So when you're ready, what you'll do is you'll hit begin exam. So if I go to student view here, You'll take the quiz and it will open up the exam. There are 54 questions on the test, so you do have more than a minute per question. Should be plenty of time, and I really, again, hope that all of you do quite well on the exam. That would be wonderful if every single one of you got an A on it. So if we go back to this week, I'd like to point out that there is a study guide for the test, as I just mentioned. It's right here underneath it. If you click on study guide number 1, all this is a compilation of all the terms that are on that last page of the lecture for everything that we've covered so far. So here are all the terms from week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. So anything that's on the study guide will be on the test. If it's not on the study guide, you don't need to know it. You can let it go. So again, if it were me, what I would do is I would go through and I would write all of these things out and have it right in front of me. That way it's super easy to reference it during the exam. Let's say you get here and you're like, oh, I can't remember what the demarcation problem is. Instead of having to flip back through that week's lecture and through the book, you have it right there in front of you and you can reference that. It's going to save you a lot of time. In general, I think it's always better to over prepare for the first exam, and then you can do less if you find that you did too much this time around. But you never want to have that moment where you're like, oh, I should have done more, and you're in the middle of the test and it's too late. So over prepare, be ready to go. Hopefully you all do fantastically, and then you can kind of adjust and tweak your preparation strategies for the next test. Okay, so I hope that you feel really good about the exam. It is a mix of like multiple choice, matching, and true false. There's a couple of short answer questions. They're not essays. They're going to be lists of things. I really love lists of like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And so hopefully you'll get really familiar and comfortable with that format. But those are all I think the tips and suggestions I would have. In addition to, don't wait till Sunday night. So you have all the way till Sunday night to take it. But I would not wait, especially when it's windy or it's rainy. Like, you just don't want to set yourself up for failure. So try and take it earlier in the week if you can, or at least like Sunday morning if you can, just so that you don't run into a problem with like your internet crashing or something like that. As always, if you run into a problem, as long as you reach out to me before the weekly deadline, I'm more than happy to work with you. But if you reach out to me at 12:01 Monday morning, it is going to be too late. So that's my one really hard rule. If you need an extension, you have an emergency, just make sure you reach out to me before the deadline, and I'm more than happy to work with you. Okay, so I have a couple of reminders for you, and then I'll give you the extra credit question. Of course, if you have any questions for me, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll post the recording of this a little bit later. So some reminders, don't forget to double check your subscription status. It's only good for 30 days. We're in week 4. So you might find that you lose, see how these have the little football cake next to their name? If you lose the little football cake, then you just need to go back and renew it, which is free to do. It just takes a couple of steps. Remember, if you're watching this later as a recording, you can still get the extra credit if you are subscribed on Twitch. The next reminder, our next Twitch live stream will be on Wednesday, February 11th at 1:30 p.m. And I'll go over the results from this week and kind of what I saw on the exam. We'll go over the materials from next week and all that kind of fun stuff. Let me give you the extra credit question and show you where to answer that and how to answer that. So this is the week number 4. Let me put this in the chat. Week number 4, Twitch extra credit. Very related to our content for this week. So what does APA stand for, and which edition are we currently using? What does APA stand for, and which edition are we currently using? And when you're ready to answer that, you'll go back to Canvas. Since we're in week 4, you'll click on optional Twitch extra credit number 4. And then up at the top, you'll click on start assignment, which is right here. And it brings up this little text box where you can type your response. And remember, if you're joining me live, just make sure you put your name in the chat. If you're watching this later as a recording, make sure you're subscribed on Twitch. And then when you're ready, you'll hit submit. You get your confetti burst and rocket ships. Why not, right? Little spaceship rocket ships. And these 2 points, these will definitely help with like a missed point or 2 on a discussion, a couple of missed points on the exam. A lot of you have been taking advantage of this, which I think is fantastic. Makes me really happy to see so many of you doing that. Um, and then from here, what I'll do is I'll hang out for a few minutes. If you do have any questions for me about the exam, about the study guide, about anything from this week. Otherwise, I hope you're all doing really well. I hope you're settling in. This class is a little bit different for me this semester. I switched over to this new textbook. I've made a lot of changes, so I hope everyone is feeling good about everything. Next week when we meet, I'll talk a little bit about the self-assessment. We have our second homework assignment, so we'll go over all that next week. But for this week, good luck with the exam. Again, I hope you all do really, really, really well. I'm going to hang out for a few minutes if you do have any questions for me. Otherwise, have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves, and I'll hope to see you next week for our next Twitch live stream. So I'm going to hang out, but I am going to minimize my video just so I'm not staring at myself. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you all so much. And again, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. Thank you too. Have a great week. Hope to see you next week. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me live. Really nice to have you all here with me. And I am still here. Like I said, I'll hang out for a few minutes if you have any questions. Otherwise, you're free to go. Have a wonderful week.